feel love, and I ain't got no
Take me high though, I got the fire flow. Shorty getting down, going up the fire pole. Radical, in the mitten where we mad cold. I got the bullfrog flow, you a tadpole. Feel the love.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to someone's favorite movie. My name is Randy, and coming to you from the Pod Shack outside beautiful Flint, Michigan, USA. With me is my friendly neighborhood Tomco.
Kind of makes you wonder if there's an unfriendly neighborhood Tomco, doesn't it?
Oh, I have no doubt.
I'm sure there's one out there.
You have a doppelganger somewhere, and he looks like an angry emoji at all times.
Did I ever tell you Jake's doppelganger stories? My good friend Jake Wilson from Jake and Tom Conquer the World.
No, he's got a doppelganger?
He has an Asian doppelganger.
Well, that's amazing.
They look exactly like each other, except that one is of European descent and the other is of Asian descent. And I've seen the picture, and it's eerie.
Believe it or not, I saw my doppelganger in real life, too, one time. I was at the world-famous Machine Shop Concert Lounge in Flint, Michigan, USA. I don't remember.
Was Fozzy playing?
Fozzy was not playing. I did not see that Chris Jericho boy. I can't remember who was playing, to be honest with you. It might have been Candlebox. Believe it or not.
Either that or... not Limp Bizkit, but oh god, Buck Cherry. Buck Cherry plays there all the time.
Yeah. Guess what? I've never seen Buck Cherry there, sir.
My respect for you has grown.
Thank you. If that's all it took. But anyways, I was there with some friends, and I looked over, and I saw me standing there with my arms folded, but it wasn't me. It was some other me. And it freaked me out. He was standing the same way that I do. He looked the same way that I do. His hair was the same as mine, except he wasn't there with any friends. So guess who the superior Randy is?
Definitely not Parallel Randy.
No, Parallel Randy is the worst person, apparently. I bet.
Now, did Parallel Randy see Randy Prime?
He looked over at me, and I just bet he was plotting in his dumb, lonely head how to get rid of me and take my place.
Now, I haven't seen photographic evidence of this, so I'm going to have to take Jake's word for this. Apparently, he saw my doppelganger up in northern Michigan years and years ago, and it was a lady who he said looked exactly like me.
Oh, boy. There's an entire episode of Seinfeld where Jerry makes fun of George because George is dating somebody that looks like a woman that looks exactly like him. It's really great, and Kramer keeps on telling George that he's in love with Jerry.
Well, I mean, I keep wondering, and it wouldn't surprise me if the lady that he saw was in fact my cousin Chris.
Oh, do you have a cousin Crisco? Oh, you do have a cousin Crisco. We've been over this.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So it's possible. She and I do look quite a bit alike, except she is taller and beefier than I am.
Ooh, beefier.
Yes.
All right.
So what have you been up to, sir? How's the world treating you in the year of 2020?
Oh, boy. The world is just a shining, shimmering place, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And it
getting nervous with every sniffle and cough?
Yeah, well, yeah, obviously, because there's only one single solitary sickness you can get in this world anymore, and it starts with a C. and it ends in a
Perhaps.
coronavirus.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah. You can't get a cold anymore. You can't get a regular flu. You can't get a allergy. Nope. All of it's nonstop corona, nonstop all the time, 24/7.
I can't remember who it was that said this. It was somebody far wittier and funnier than myself, but she was saying that back in 2019, you used to cover up a cough with a fart, and now it's the exact opposite.
I mean, that's all anybody talks about, including us, apparently.
Apparently.
Yeah. You just can't escape it.
No matter how hard you try, it's in the air, literally.
Yeah. This is what Phil Collins was singing about all those years ago. It's coming in the air tonight.
You know what? I think the world would have been a much better place if we had listened to more Phil Collins.
And if the coronavirus could play an awesome drum solo.
Ooh. That would be pretty badass.
Anyways.
I'm sure that you've not been only watching these homework assignments that you've been giving me. What else have you been watching lately, sir?
I watched a movie the other day called A Face in the Crowd. And
that name sounds really familiar.
It stars Andy Griffith in his, basically his very first starring role. Andy Griffith plays this drifter, loves the booze, loves to womanize, gets himself into trouble.
He's a good old boy.
Loves to have a good old time, like good old boys do, you see. And he gets himself locked up in jail. Fortunately for him, this young radio personality, I guess, is going around town trying to drum up stories. And she's got a segment that she has called A Face in the Crowd on her local radio station. She decides to hit up the local jail because you're bound to find some characters there, right?
Usually.
Well, she stumbles upon good old Andy Griffith there, who says that his name is Lonesome Rhodes, Larry Lonesome Rhodes, and he got thrown in the drunk tank the night before with his guitar, and he picks up his guitar, and he starts wailing away and crooning, and she's like instantly smitten and thinks that he's like a star in the making. So she kind of enlists the aid of the staff at the radio station, and turns out that people really take a liking to this charismatic man. So he gets his own radio show, and then he parlays that into a TV show, and he gets all these sponsors, and he makes fun of these sponsors, you know, and he
ain't gonna tell Andy Griffith what to do.
Yeah, exactly. He's like anti-establishment, and he turns this into a job becoming a spokesperson for snake oil. And because he likes it, the crowd eats it up. Eventually, he parlays his amazing television ratings into a political career.
Oh, good Lord.
Oh, good Lord, indeed. So the movie is all about how television can elevate people into false idols.
Don't say.
This came out in 1956 when TV was basically brand new. If you can't draw a parallel between, I don't know, maybe current events and this movie, but it was very eerie how close they went hand in hand. Andy Griffith is amazing in this movie, by the way. I didn't know he could sing, but he really could. And he's about as far away from the character of Andy Griffith as you could possibly be.
He's actually a fairly underrated actor. I mean, even on the Andy Griffith show, he was a pretty damn good actor.
Yeah, and he's excellent in this movie. It's a little bit long at times and drags out, but it's definitely worth a watch. Maybe after
I might have to look for that.
It's on HBO Max, so and there's
I'm gonna have to hunt that up, I think.
And there's a Criterion collection out there of it. So, what about you, sir? What have you been watching?
I have actually went back and rewatched a couple of movies that I haven't seen for a while, just to kind of see if they held up, and I was surprised that they did. One of them is called Resurrect Dead. The Mystery of the Toynbee Tiles. Have you ever heard of a Toynbee tile, sir?
I have, and I've heard of this movie. I might have even seen it.
Basically, it is a documentary about these group of people that met on message boards back when those were a thing. They were all obsessed with these things that were on the pavement in cities across America, from, say, St. Louis and Kansas City all the way over to the East Coast, and as far north as Detroit, and as far south as, like, Santiago, Chile. And they all said the same thing. It said, let me look it up, actually. I want to get as close to an exact quote as I can get. It said, they all said, Toynbee idea in movie 2001. Resurrect dead on planet Jupiter.
Yeah, that's right.
And
I'm starting to remember it a little bit now.
And some of the tiles would have these little side panels that were just anywhere from simple screeds to full-blown manifestos. And at first they were just showing up in crosswalks through these cities, but eventually they started turning up in just bizarre places, like the entrance to the Lincoln Tunnel and on busy expressways. And nobody knew who it was that was putting these there, let alone how they were able to do it in such high-risk areas. And I don't want to give too much of this movie away because it's an interesting mystery that they unravel. But I don't know. There's just something about this story that kind of just stuck in the back of my head. And it's just fascinating. A little creepy, but fascinating. I mean, it's available on YouTube, absolutely free. In fact, the people that made the movie, they encourage you to see it on YouTube just because they want to share their story. Definitely, I mean, it's less than an hour and a half long. It moves at a very, very brisk pace, and it's an attention grabber.
Excellent. I like attention grabbers.
The other one that I rewatched is a movie called Wonderland. I sent you the trailer to that the other day. Have you ever seen that movie?
I've not seen that movie, but is it the one with Val Kilmer and he plays John Holmes?
Yeah.
Okay.
It takes place toward the end of John Holmes' career, when he was pretty much an out and out basehead junkie.
Oh, you might want to tell people who John Holmes is. Like, not everyone's a pervert like you, sir.
Just goes to show you what my circle of friends is like.
Exactly.
John Holmes, back in the 70s and 80s, was a legendary adult film actor who was known for two things. His weird appearance, because he had the biggest white boy fro that you could imagine, wispy little mustache, bone thin, and a penis the size and shape of a Pringles can.
See, and we've got both those things in common, me and him. It's amazing.
Hey, I have seen your fro. It is one. Seriously, sir, how do you get hats?
It's rough, but you should actually ask me more about the hair care I take on my wispy mustache.
Is it true that you had to claim $70,000 in taxes for hair care?
It's a bit low, sir. It's a bit low.
But toward the end of his career, he was down and out because he burned a lot of bridges. And he eventually found himself in the company of some very, very shady people. One of which was a notorious gangster in the Los Angeles area, and some others were a rather notorious gang in the hills of Hollywood, and a whole bunch of them ended up dead, and he was smack dab in the middle of it. It's a good movie. A lot of the dialogue on rewatch felt very clumsy and full of the dialogue was just had too much exposition in it, is the word I'm trying to figure out.
Yeah.
You know, that's how they were trying to connect everything, just through telling rather than showing. But honestly, it's one of the better movies that Val Kilmer has done, and Val Kilmer has actually done a lot of really good movies, and this stands up with any of things that he's more known for, like Tombstone or The Doors or even Top Gun. I'd say that this is probably better than a good chunk of those. And it's one of those movies that when you get done watching it, all you want is to take a shower.
My favorite Val Kilmer performance is in Kiss Kiss Bang Bang.
Very good movie, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
That movie's the whole reason Robert Downey Jr. became Tony Stark and Iron Man. I'm convinced of it.
Yeah, because by that point, he was pretty much a pariah.
Yeah,
in Hollywood.
He was almost blackballed completely out of Hollywood, and Shane Black wrote Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, and it's really a character's movie. It's a character-driven movie, and he gave it his all. It's pretty great. And
it is.
It's not a far stretch from that character to Tony Stark either. So
no.
The other movies I've been watching, I forgot to mention these. I watched both the Babysitter movies on Netflix.
Babysitter movies.
Yeah, the Babysitter came out. The first one came out in 2017, starring Samara Weaving, who's been in a lot of stuff lately, mostly genre horror stuff, some Blumhouse stuff. She was in Ready or Not, where she plays a bride who gets married to an heir to a gaming fortune, and their family has a weird tradition on the nights, on their wedding nights. They always have to play a game as a kind of a homage to how they got their riches. Usually it's a harmless game. They kind of spin a wheel or whatever, and the game is picked, and occasionally the game is not so harmless, and it becomes a game of hide and seek, except with death and killing. She was also in Mayhem, which is kind of an office comedy horror thing with Stephen Yeun.
Oh, yeah. I watched that the other day with the wife on Shudder.
Yeah. Some sort of experimental gas or virus or whatever gets unleashed into an office space, and everyone goes nuts, basically. But she's the star of The Babysitter, along with a young man by the name of Judah Lewis. I'm sorry, and basically it's about a boy and his older babysitter that he's got a crush on, but she's super awesome and amazing and blah blah blah. So his parents go out of town and she's babysitting like she always does, and his little girlfriend across the street is like, well, why don't you stay awake and see what she does when you go to bed? I bet she has an orgy or something. And they're like, tee hee, you know. So, of course, he decides that, he's going to stay up. And when he stays up, he thinks he's about to see an orgy. But instead, what he sees is the babysitter stabbing some poor guy in the head to sacrifice him to Satan, along with all of her weird friends.
Well, that's kind of hot.
Right? I mean, it's definitely metal anyways, right?
It is.
But the Babysitter movie is I think, a really good mix of comedy and horror. It's definitely worth a watch. The sequel that came out this year, The Babysitter Killer Queen, not as good. It stars pretty much the entire cast of the first movie. They betray a lot of characters from the first movie. I think just for shock value, and it doesn't really sit well. Plus, it's a sequel, and usually sequels don't really,
Usually not. Especially when you find out that the movie is the 13th in a long-running series.
Yeah, that could be a problem, yeah.
Usually. Unlucky number 13.
Yeah. Unfortunately, The Babysitter only has 2, and they're 50-50. But if you were playing baseball, you'd be an all-star, so hey.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Today's a momentous day. Did you know that, Tomko?
Really? Is this an anniversary, or did something amazing happen within the last 24 hours?
Something amazing happened. A new Star Wars holiday special dropped today.
I heard about that. I haven't had a chance to watch it.
It's the Lego Star Wars holiday special. Me and our pal TRB covered the infamous, notorious Star Wars holiday special from 1978.
That was the Star Wars show that literally broke an episode of Jake and Tom.
It's a train wreck in every sense of the word. It was just infecting you with its awfulness. That's all. You know, it can't be helped. It's pretty much poisonous. You need to be wearing a hazmat suit to even. I mean, there's a scene where Chewbacca's elderly uncle is watching pornography. This was a primetime children's show.
Yeah.
Amazing.
But oddly enough, I have a tradition where I will watch it every year on Christmas Eve.
That's not a bad tradition. It's kind of weird, but...
Well, I watch it with the Riff Tracks commentary.
Okay, that wouldn't be so bad.
Get through that.
Yeah. Other than that, it's almost intolerable. Like the first 15 minutes... So they decided that in the holiday special, the main character should be Chewbacca's family. Okay. The problem is all of Chewbacca's family, the designs of them look so awful.
Nightmarish.
Yeah. And also, if you've seen a Star Wars movie, you know that Chewbacca doesn't talk. He howls, he roars, he makes all sorts of guttural noises. And his family's no different. And they do this for the first 15 minutes of the movie, and there's no subtitles. They're just roaring and barking at each other. It's intolerable.
I've often wondered whether or not the actors that played Chewie's family thought that this was going to be their big break. They thought that, oh my God, they cast us in the Star Wars Christmas special. We're going to be in the sequels. We're set for life.
Yeah. I mean, to the show's credit, I mean, they do have Harrison Ford and Carrie Fisher and Mark Hamill, Anthony Daniels. I mean, they're all there, but they don't use them well or to any great effect. It does nobody a service, that show.
Well, one of the things I remember about that show is that Mark Hamill, it looks like he's buried underneath a pile of makeup because he just had that car accident.
Right, yeah.
And Carrie Fisher looks like she's buried underneath a pile of cocaine because she just got all that money.
Yeah, there's a scene at the end of the movie where she's like singing and, she's singing to something. I don't know.
Oddly enough, that was her one condition on appearing in that thing. She wanted to have a number.
Right, yeah, for whatever reason. I mean, everyone's got their price, right? Said the $1 Million Man.
Yeah.
So today, I mean, there was rumors of this because Jon Favreau, when The Mandalorian first dropped last year, said he was a huge fan of the holiday special and he really wanted to do one. And they didn't let him, apparently. Instead, they opted to go with the Lego Star Wars holiday special. And if you've seen a Lego movie, they're usually quite fun, and there's a bunch of one-liners, and they usually parody or skewer whatever they are covering, like the Batman Lego movie makes fun of pretty much every iteration of Batman. And
that was the most Batman thing I think I've ever seen.
Yeah, I mean, they're really good at getting to the heart of like a character or a franchise and making you care about the movie you're watching while at the same time kind of making it fun and making fun of it.
But also reminding you of why that property has been around for so long, whether it's Star Wars, Transformers, Indiana Jones, anything. It's showing you all of the really great parts of that property, but also, taking the time to be tongue-in-cheek about some of the not-so-great parts about it.
Absolutely. So I was kind of hoping the Lego Star Wars Holiday Special would be kind of a parody of the original Holiday Special, just some bizarre, surreal variety show that should never exist. But they didn't do that. They made an actual movie instead.
Oh, the cowards.
Right? It's only 47 minutes long, so it's a quick watch. And basically, it focuses on Life Day, which is the day that is celebrated in the original holiday special. It's the substitute for Christmas, the non-denominational celebration of...
Because George wanted to sell toys to everyone, regardless of religion.
Good for him. He's a master salesman.
He is.
Yeah. So the movie is about Rey training Finn to be a Jedi, and she's kind of failing at it, she thinks, and not doing the best job. And so she comes into possession of this plot device in the form of a some sort of ancient artifact on a faraway planet that allows her to go back in time. So she finds herself dropping into various points in Star Wars history, witnessing Yoda training Luke and watching Obi-Wan fight Anakin on the fire pits and stuff like that. So it's basically a trip through Star Wars memory lane with a bunch of puns and one-liners thrown in.
Well, I'm looking forward to seeing it.
Yeah, it's kind of fun. It's not as great as I hoped it would be. Because, like I said, I was hoping for some bizarre and surreal variety show like the original. But I think kids will definitely enjoy it. And big kids like yourself too, Tomko.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. But that's enough chitter chatter, I suppose, because you're all here for one thing, right?
And what would that be, sir?
Hearing you talk.
Oh, of course.
Of course.
That velvety smooth voice that just pours out of these pipes.
That's right. Tomko, your mutant power is being fickle, and tonight we are covering the newest movie we've ever covered in the history of the program. It just came out today, in fact, as we record. It's a movie called The New Mutants.
Though it's not really that new, because it hadn't been completed for a long time. In fact, didn't they shoot it twice?
This is the movie that the term development hell was made for. It's just been delayed and the victim of the Disney-Fox merger and a worldwide pandemic. It just can't catch a break, this movie.
Well, I have to admit, I have not been as active as I once was on social media, and I'm nowhere near as active as I was in movie news, but I seem to remember that they, if not did extensive reshoots, didn't they scrap the movie and start over again when it was almost completed?
They wanted to, but it never really happened. So basically, well, The New Mutants is a Marvel Comics franchise, obviously, and in comic book form, it became the second ongoing X-Men title because even back then, Marvel liked to make money, and the X-Men was the highest selling comic in the industry. So why not capitalize that with a new title called The New Mutants?
Catchy.
So catchy. Basically, it's a play on Stan Lee's original name for the X-Men. He originally wanted to call them the Mutants in the 60s, but he settled for the X-Men instead because good for him. That was a better choice.
Though I could see why he would want to go with the Mutants. I mean, this was the day and age where you had rock bands like the Beatles, the Stones, the Zombies, the Mutants.
That's a good point. Yeah. I would have loved it if they were like a superhero rock band. I can't believe he didn't think of that.
God damn it, Stan, you fucking hack.
Geez, Stan, couldn't you come up with anything?
And speaking of Stan Lee, how the hell is he an executive producer on this?
Well, I think technically he was alive when all of this started, so.
Fair enough.
Yeah. So the comic series the basis for the comic series was Professor X found a bunch of new mutants, younger mutants that he was going to train into one day becoming the next generation of the X-Men. It's basically what it was. And it really started to hit its stride as a comic book series when Chris Claremont, who had been writing the series all along with the X-Men, was joined on the title by an artist by the name of Bill Sienkiewicz. And Bill has a very distinct art style that kind of jumps off the stands. All of his covers are painted. The proportions on the characters sometimes are like distorted and kind of surreal.
It's very dreamlike, his work.
Yeah. Very kind of edgy, especially for the early 80s. Very distinctive and very eye-catching. Especially with the painted covers, because you would see something like that on the stands, you would notice it immediately. Because of that, sales of the title went up. The movie itself, well,
did not go up.
It did not go up. It just went down, down, down like a lead balloon, which probably should have been the working title for this movie, Lead Balloon, because wow. So the first teaser trailer for this movie was dropped in 2017.
Oh, Jesus Christ, that long ago?
That long. And Josh Boone, who's a director, he directed The Fault in Our Stars, and he's the person behind the upcoming The Stand miniseries on CBS All Access. He and his childhood friend, Nate Waltney, were huge fans of the X-Men and the New Mutants when they were kids. And they created a homemade comic that they made based on the Demon Bear saga from the New Mutants, which was kind of a memorable storyline in the New Mutants. They made that to pitch to the studio. They wanted it to be kind of like a mutant version of the Breakfast Club with some horror elements tossed in. And then the dreaded studio interference came in. Because here's what I don't get. They were trying to make something completely unique and distinctive from the other X-Men movies.
Which I thought was pretty ballsy of them, actually.
Yeah, well, and you would think Fox would be all about this, considering the success they had with Logan and Deadpool, which were both hard R-rated superhero movies.
Nothing like the traditional X-Men movie.
No, far and away, and completely different from every other superhero movie that was out there, too. So,
and I have to admit, I was really intrigued when they were saying it's going to be a superhero horror movie.
Yeah.
I was applauding, I have to admit, I was really kind of hoping for something really awesome with this movie.
I remember seeing the first trailer for it and thinking, wow, this is going to be something else, because it's almost like they're being stalked by like a Freddy Krueger type character. Somebody's getting in their head, but the studio kind of did not like that direction whatsoever.
Which, and this is hardly the first time this has ever happened with the movie, but couldn't they have made that decision while the script was being written, as opposed to by the time the movie was pretty much done filming?
Well, apparently both Boone and Nate were very, very protective of what they were writing. Their first screenplay was written in 2015 for this movie, and I found an article from Vulture that somebody close to the production said that the script was really, really bad. It had a bunch of crude humor. Quote, Josh was sending around posters where the New Mutant characters are put into the Breakfast Club poster. The Legend of Billie Jean was another movie he was always bringing up. Punk rocky rebellious teens are already baked into the X-Men, but here, one of the characters was a misogynist and graffitiing his penis on stuff. There were head scratchers like, that's not gonna work. Apparently the initial draft also had Storm in the movie, and she acted as a kind of a sadistic prison warden in this movie.
How did that not fly at the studio?
Right? I mean, you have a popular character already in your main franchise, and
well, not only that, but a very lucrative actor.
Fox brought in numerous people to rewrite the script, and Boone would pretty much completely undo all the work that they did. So, stalemates. They never did reshoots on this movie because
Okay, I could have sworn I heard that they did.
and
I will admit I was mistaken then.
well, they wanted to do reshoots on it. However, the Disney Fox merger happened.
Ah.
And years passed. So by the time the merger was done and everything was settled, all the actors had already aged significantly, so they didn't resemble the characters they played already. Whoops.
Okay, that's making sense.
How would you describe this movie?
A slog.
A slog. Ooh.
I mean, maybe it's because I don't know. I walked in expecting something different than the average superhero movie. I thought it was going to be a horror movie, and it was kinda, except it wasn't scary. And I did not know a whole lot about the nuts and bolts of this movie as far as what it was really about, or even who was in it. So I was really shocked to see a super solid cast. I don't know. It just felt cheap. It felt predictable. It felt like an hour and a half that I had to spend a week getting through.
Here's the thing is, I think that work in this movie. The cast does work. The cast is really, really great in this movie. Anya Taylor-Joy as Magic is like the best thing ever. She's so good in this movie.
I thought that they were good individually, but I didn't really get a really great sense of chemistry between them.
No, I didn't. There wasn't. I agree. Individually as their characters, they were great, but as a cast, I don't think they meshed that well usually.
Mm-hmm.
There was not a lot of standout moments. There's a whole love subplot between Maisie Williams, who plays Wolfsbane, and Blue Hunt, who plays Moonstar. Yeah, Danny Moonstar.
Okay.
Yeah. But there's that, but you never really buy that they are really into each other. But like I said, Anya Taylor-Joy as Magic is great. Magic is a Russian mutant who can teleport, and she can basically make a sword come out of her hand, and she can teleport through hell.
Honestly, she stole the whole movie.
Oh, for sure. And she also has a puppet called Lockheed, which longtime X-Men fans will recognize. And she kind of talks to that puppet like it's her only friend. And the implication is that she's insane and crazy talking to this puppet, but it has a pretty good payoff at the end.
Yeah, I have to admit that made me grin.
Yeah. She does steal the movie, and rightfully so. She's
a hell of a good actor.
Oh,
Have
yeah.
you seen any of the Queen's Gambit?
Not yet, but people are raving about it.
She's amazing in it.
I bet. She is, in the comics, the sister of Colossus, the giant metal guy from Deadpool 2 and the X-Men movies, lesser so. But that's never really brought up at all. Charlie Heaton from Stranger Things plays Sam Guthrie, Cannonball.
And boy, is his accent awful.
Oh, it's so bad. There was one scene in particular where they're sitting around bitching about stuff, and all of a sudden his accent kicked into overdrive. Like, it was so over the top. I'm like, what happened? This wasn't there the rest of the movie. All of a sudden you decided to really lay into it, and it just didn't work. I mean,
you're gonna have to narrow that scene down because there's a lot of scenes of them just sitting around talking.
I don't even remember what they were talking about, to be quite honest with you. He was, I don't know. It's near the end of the movie, but the accent thing was, it's like, if you can't do, so he's supposed to be from Kentucky, but if you can't do a proper accent, then just don't bother. Like, what's the point?
Yeah, not all people from Kentucky talk like that.
No. There's also this thing in this movie where I hate stuff like this in superhero and comic movies. Maisie Williams and Blue Hunt are walking around, and they see him. He ties a chain to himself, and basically he can shoot up into the air like a cannonball. Says old Maisie Williams there, and I'm like, God, I hate that. That's so cringeworthy. No one would say that in real life. We get that character's name in the comics is Cannonball. Everybody already knows that. You don't have to do that, and I hate it. However,
yeah,
on the opposite end, when Anya Taylor-Joy said at the end of the movie, they're like, you can't go fight that demon bear. Oh, yes, there's a big, giant, magical demon bear. We'll get to that. You can't fight that demon bear. It's magic. And she looks and she says, so am I. She jumps into her portal. Yeah, that one I bought. And also that one's right from the storyline in the comics. So there.
God, who the hell else was in there? There was, and again, I'm not well versed in the X-Men comics at all. There was another variation on the Human Torch.
That's Sunspot. He's a classic character. All of these characters, believe it or not, have been around for almost 40 years, which
I believe it.
Makes me feel so old. But yeah, Sunspot can turn into a flaming guy kind of and become super strong. Danny Moonstar, her power is, well, she can create illusions of the things that people fear the most. And that's where you get the horror element of the movie. And
so if she wants to eat me, she would just make me think that I, had a public speaking engagement and I sharded myself.
Yeah, that pretty much. You would stutter yourself into insignificance, basically. So that's where we get the horror elements of the movies. All of her classmates or roommates, if you will, are starting to see their greatest fears. And this is the other part of the movie I really liked. Instead of shoehorning like origin stories for each of them at the beginning of the movie, they're throughout the movie, and you're seeing them through the eyes of their greatest fears coming true, which I liked. Anya Taylor-Joy's character is haunted by smiley men, and that doesn't really make sense whatsoever. It's never explained who these guys were.
They just look like the Kmart version of Slender Man.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah. To me, this movie really feels like it suffers from franchise syndrome, where everything has to connect to everything else, and only Marvel and Kevin Feige really seems to be able to pull that off. But everyone wants to duplicate that formula, and it just doesn't work. So apparently they wanted this to be the first in a trilogy of movies, so they set up all these things like there's an unseen character watching over everybody and calling all the shots. You're never going to find out who it is. He never appears. Unless you're a hardcore comic nerd, then you would know, because the Essex Corporation is behind it all, which is the name of a character in the comics named Mr. Sinister, which is the worst name ever for a supervillain.
Sounds kind of like a wrestler, I always thought. Honestly, I mean, I applaud the effort. It was kind of a ballsy move to do this movie, and I got to give them all the credit for it, but it was... I never really felt that the characters were in real danger. You knew that they were all going to make it out in the end, and it just felt flat. Like day-old Diet Coke that had been left out in the counter.
I think one of the bigger problems is the New Mutants as a comic franchise really has no, great villains or anything like that. The Demon Bear saga is probably one of the most well-known storylines until they transformed, until the New Mutants met Cable and became X-Force. So their big arch enemy is a giant magical bear, basically. And in the comics, it's a giant manifestation of nightmares and whatnot, and it's really surreal and trippy, and they don't really go there in the movie, and they probably should have, to make it something different, because I think that was the intent. If you were going to try to make a horror superhero movie, you should lean all the way in.
I'm just kind of wondering what storyline would work in... Well, shit. I think I just answered my question as far as what storyline would work as far as meshing superheroes and horror, and I'd say probably that first Arkham Asylum game. So, I mean, do you want to go by this plot point, or I mean,
Not really. There's not a lot here.
yeah, like I said, there's a lot of sitting around, occasional flash of CGI, poorly done, and then they put all of the money that they had in their budget into that third act.
So we get the beginning where this fresh-faced character is running from some unseen danger, and she gets knocked out, wakes up at a hospital bed, and then she meets the rest of the team.
Which, not to interrupt, but I thought it was kind of weird where they have her strapped to a hospital bed, and the hospital bed has wheels. That just tells me that she's being held by the world's dumbest captors.
Right. So she wakes up and she finds she's in this place, and I don't know, stuff happens. Her doctor keeps telling her that they're here to train and learn how to use their powers properly.
Which right away, I mean, that tells me that, okay, they're being trained to be weapons.
Yeah, and
they're the bad guys.
That's exactly what the person behind the doctor wants, is to turn them into weapons. Because they're all kind of damaged in some way, shape, or form. They've all used their powers to kill somebody else, accidentally or not. So they already have that mark on them. They've got that taste for blood, if you will. And when she comes in, Danny Moonstar does not know really what her powers are. She doesn't even realize she's a mutant. But it starts to come out that after all these unexplained happenings occur in the it's basically a mental asylum, let's face it, because there's seclusion rooms and whatnot. Once all these start happening, the doctor pretty much figures out that she's the reason behind them. And when at the end, when the doctor is trying to kill Danny because she's been given orders from on high that she's too powerful to live, when she's trying to kill Danny at the end, Danny's greatest fear comes back to life, and it's the demon bear, who promptly kills the doctor. And then we've got the epic CGI final battle.
Lot of CGI.
Yep, basically people just throwing CGI at unseen things. That's what it is. And posing a lot. There's a lot of posing.
I actually felt bad for the actors at that one scene where the doctor has them all in their little bubbles. Because you can tell they're trying their best to imagine the bubbles, but they aren't being given good directions as far as what the bubbles are supposed to be like.
And if you look in that scene, it's so stupid because Cannonball has his arm through the fucking shield. Yeah. It's like, really? You couldn't have done something else with that?
Speaking of stupid, I'm not a bad guy. I don't know the inner workings of the criminal mind, but I would imagine that if you're trying to kill somebody that is dangerously powerful and unbelievably frightening, the last thing you would want to do is tell them, I'm going to kill you, let alone explain it in great detail.
Yeah, when it's been shown repeatedly throughout the movie that whenever she's stressed out, like if she's having a nightmare or she's feeling stressed, all these weird things start to happen. So you
just give her some laced ice cream or something.
Yeah, you would think you wouldn't try to crush her with your ooey gooey jello shields that you can form out of thin air. But yeah, the big bad of the movie is a giant teddy bear, which they never really beat.
No, he just kind of takes a nap.
Danny Moonstar wakes up and says, "No, go to sleep."
And he does.
Like he's an obedient dog.
His bear bed wasn't too hard. It wasn't too soft. It was just right.
I don't hate this movie.
I don't hate it.
I don't.
I'm glad I have it, if for no other reason than I inexplicably have every single other X-Men movie.
Yeah.
So I can now say I have the complete collection.
Yeah.
And if you're a fan of this genre, you're gonna see it one way or the other, regardless of what I say.
Yeah, without a doubt. And I have no no qualms about it. It will be on FX for years to come. This screams FX movie, Saturday night movie.
They're going to try to get their money back any way, shape, and form they can. Whether it's, it's going to be marked down in the $5 Walmart bin. You're going to end up buying it and contributing to the back end. It's going to be shown. It's going to have all of those little clips that you have on YouTube, and you have to sit through the commercial for it. You're going to be seeing this movie a lot.
And it's kind of historical because this was the first movie that came out after lockdown that the studios tossed out there. This was the very first.
This was the canary in the mine shaft, huh?
Yeah. And you know what happens in the mine shaft when Cannonball's there? Shit goes wrong. The canary dies. Yeah.
Not to nitpick, too much, but is it a good idea to name the studio that you just acquired, which is a world famous marquee name known throughout the world as 20th Century Fox? Is it a good idea to call it 20th Century Studios 20 years removed from the 20th century?
No, I don't think so. I think that was probably some agreement where they couldn't have Fox in the title, but they wanted to keep the awesome logo and sort of the name recognition. I'm guessing that's
that's not a good name.
It's not a good name, and by the way, just toss Disney and Marvel on it.
There you go.
You don't need that 20th century anything.
I would, I would agree. Just put those two logos. Just put the Marvel logo on there. That's all you need.
It's the single most driving force in cinema today, in terms of dollars. Just put Marvel on it and market it as a Marvel movie.
But on the other hand, if they put it on this movie, do you think it would kind of almost devalue the brand? Somewhat?
Yeah, and I'm guessing that's why they didn't do it. I'm guessing that's why they didn't include it, or maybe film a last minute cameo by, I don't know, Doctor Strange or something. I'm thinking that's why, because they realized that what they had, and it wasn't the best, and it might tarnish the pedigree of that Marvel has worked hard to build. And so they kind of sort of wanted to distance themselves, but at the same time, they had the property. The film was done. It's got an established fan base, and they know fanboys will see it, so they might as well release it. I know there was some debate about whether or not they were going to really take the plunge and just toss it on to Disney Plus, and obviously that never happened. But it's interesting now to hear all.
Actually, that would have been a good way to get people who are already a customer of Disney Plus to somehow also include Hulu, because I think that would be a better fit for
on
a movie
Hulu
like this.
Yeah. The Marvel show Runaways is on Hulu, and I mean I've only watched the first season, but it's a lot edgier than what they normally do, so it's a good fit for Hulu, and I think it might be on Disney Plus now, but I can see this existing in that sort of same universe.
Yeah.
And it's interesting when you think about it, because now there's been all this talk about Wonder Woman 84 possibly just
ended up on HBO Max. Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe a theatrical run on Christmas for a few days and then just toss it in on HBO Max, which again is a very ballsy move, because that wasn't a cheap movie to make.
No. But on the other hand, it draw a lot of eyes to that service who, I mean, let's face it, they don't have anywhere near the number of subscriptions sold as Disney Plus does.
Yeah. And at the same time, I realize that all these movies cost a lot of money, but how much money does a company like Disney actually need anyways?
Well, not to mention that they can still, they can bury their losses in other projects and tax returns, so that, yeah, you hear that they're going to lose X amount of hundreds of millions of dollars on this movie, but they aren't really going to actually lose that.
Right. Also, this may actually, depending on the fate of Wonder Woman, be the only superhero movie released this year.
In 2020?
Yeah.
No, that's not right, because you also had Harley Quinn.
Oh, that's right. Damn it, you just ruined my statistic.
Well, you know what? I was not going to let this be the only superhero movie of the year. As lackluster and okay as that Harley Quinn movie was, it was miles ahead of this one.
Yeah, and guess what? The Harley Quinn movie was a lot of fun too. It was.
I enjoyed it. There were some parts that the comic geek in me just was kind of cringing about,
Sure.
but my wife loved it.
Yeah, a lot of people did.
And let's face it, that's the audience they were targeting.
Yeah,
They didn't give a rat's ass what I thought. They knew I was going to buy my ticket.
yeah. It was going to be the DC equivalent of Deadpool, basically.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, everybody knows superhero movies have ruled the roost far enough for a long time that I think audiences will pretty much take anything now. Like, I think we're finally at the point where you can have Galactus on the screen and not pretend he's a big stupid cloud. Actually have a big giant Titan with a purple helmet. And people would go, oh, that's cool. They would buy it. That's where we're at, I think. You had a goddamn Spider movie with Spider-Ham in it. Anything goes, goddamn it.
Yes, once we've crossed the Spider-Ham threshold, all bets are off.
Yeah, it's the Spider-Ham theory of success.
I like that.
Yeah. Once you have Spider-Ham,
sure.
it's all good.
How do you want to top the Spider-Ham theory of success?
I don't know that I can. I will say that this is it's not a bad movie. It's not a good movie. It's somewhere in the middle. And sometimes that's what you want. You want something to put on in the background while you do other things. And this would be good for that.
This is a perfect hanging out with your buddies, getting drunk movie, I think.
Yeah.
Where you're not going to pay that much of attention, but you're going to have... It'll kind of keep things together.
Yeah, that's right. While we have your captive ears, if you haven't already, go to our Facebook page on the facebook.com, because you're there already. It's someone's favorite movie on the Facebook. Come like our page. We don't have a fancy group or anything like that. Just a page. We've got 200 likes.
I've noticed that you're posting on that.
Yeah.
My Facebook app is sending me occasional reminders saying such and such is posting on such and such.
Yeah.
Make sure you see their stories before they disappear. It's because I haven't been on Facebook really regularly for the better part of 2 months now.
Yeah. Well, we've had a really good week on the Facebook page. We have 200 likes now. So,
oh, shit.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
We're doing things. So go ahead, like us there. If you have any questions, comments, movies we should cover on this program, go ahead and post them there.
Yes, I'm dying to get some suggestions.
Yeah, anything goes. It's called Someone's Favorite Movie for a reason. And we kind of did a pivot this week, but we're going back to the plan next week. It's going to be Freaked, which you still haven't watched, but I think you'll like.
I've been busy, sir. I've been busy and literally in the dark.
Oh, yeah. Poor power outage Tomko.
A good solid 36 hours of no power in this 35-degree late autumn. A lot of fun.
It is a lot of fun, especially considering the fact that it was 80 degrees like last week. So you really missed out. You have poor timing, sir.
I do.
Yeah.
Always have, always will.
Yeah. Poor timing Tomko. That's what they call you. Well, we hope you don't have poor timing. Poor timing, I say. Poor timing next week, and join us when we cover Freaked. All right. See ya.
See ya.